Hey guys, this is Put Spice, and I am here to do a speed color of this Afropunk volume number 1. This was a buddy color with T's World, and we were going to go ahead and play with this because it was a fab book. I think she showed it on her channel, and I immediately had to go buy it on Amazon. And so then after that, we set up a buddy color. So I'm of course going to use markers because I love my markers, and I actually like this amount of grayscale with the markers because it makes things a lot easier. So I put a piece of paper between the sheets so that even though it's single-sided, my markers will bleed through. So there you go. I'm using some Classiques, which are Spectrum Noir markers. All it is basically their classic type with the bullet nib and the chisel tip instead of their brush pens or anything like that. So yeah, if you had questions about that, that's how that works. Spectrum Noir markers, they're basically all the same colors that they have. They just change the barrels based on whether it's a brush tip marker, whether it's a tri-blend, or let's see, what else do they have? Or whether it is one of their, I can't even think right now. Watercolor markers. I was trying to think. I'm like, I can't think of it. But anyway, so here we go. I'm using these colors, and then I like the color once I get this down, and then you'll see I end up changing my mind. But I'm using this lighter color to go over every part of her face. Excuse me. And then even though I'm going to color hair, I'm going in between. So, because you do have a scalp, and your scalp is usually the color of your skin. So then I'm going in with this darker marker. But then I decide I want to change the tone of the brown. So then I end up doing that instead. But I leave the center of the glasses because the glasses are going to have a different shade and create a different color on your skin anyway. See my fabulous blue ring? I love that ring. It's one of several I made a long time ago. So now I'm using a Hoo markers. I use all kinds of markers in this one. I use a Hoo's. I think I use some Nouveaux. I use some Spectrum Noir metallics, and I use some watercolor paint from Prima. So see here, I changed the color that I wanted to go with. It's more red. And so I'm just going through and doing the places where it would be darker. So any place that'll cast a shadow or that is further away from your light source will be darker. And so see here, I put this other color, and I'm like, I wanted to change the tone of it. And you can see when I changed my mind totally, because I just went okay, we'll do this whole thing. Swipe. So now I've started adding another dark color around the edges to darken it up even more. And then I'll just keep going back and forth between so that you can get the color that you want. It's so cute. So fun. I love alcohol markers. And I believe this is Amazon printed paper. I know a lot of people complain about it, but it's just regular old paper to me. It's all about what you personally like and can deal with and so forth. So I have no problems coloring on Amazon paper. Later on, you'll see I use watercolors as well. So here I am using another set. These are my Aspire markers. They're all alcohol markers, so they all mix together. And of course, you probably knew there was going to be some kind of blue going on here. And I'm testing them on the side to make sure I've got like the way I want them to go. It's from light to dark. And you can always use more than 3 colors. I just start out with 3 and then I go from there. And here I'm not being precious about like what is what and doing every strand because it's unnecessary. Of course, like I said, everything is up to you. You color how you want to color. It's your coloring book. But I'm not going to go through all that. And the fact that it has grayscale, this is what I was saying about it, is helpful. Because you put one spot, one stripe of color, and it already creates depth for you. But as you see, I'll go back and add the colors to make it darker in areas. So now I'm going to decide to do her outfit, and I was trying to go kind of like space robot something or other. And of course, you know, I do love my teals and my blues. So we went with that. And in reality, if you have a grayscale page, you could just easily flat color this because the darks are already there for you. But for the most part, I'm not going to flat color. There's going to be at least a 3-tone kind of thing going on most of the time. Most of the time, baby. Vroom, vroom. And it's always the same thing. Go in and add darker colors wherever there would be a shadow, wherever something would fall. So like this little medallion piece is going to be in front, which means it's going to cast a shadow. And if I want that piece of fabric or metal, whatever you want to call it, to make it look like it's in front, then you throw a shadow underneath it. And you can vary the size of the shadows underneath there, depending on how much of a color blend you want, depending on how many colors you want to use, and depending on how smooth you want to transition. That may just have sounded like the same thing over and over again. Oh gosh. But basically you'll see here, like I've got my 3 colors, right? And so the one color, the lightest color, is over everything. Then I went back over it for a wider strip. And then the next one is a thinner strip. And then the next one would be a thinner strip than that. And then you can just go back and forth between your colors and always go over the other color. So here I've got a 4th color, and it's a darker blue, and it's a much thinner line and thinner area versus the 2 colors before it. And what is really fun too sometimes is like with the alcohol markers, obviously they bleed, right? And if you want to get like a feathery kind of effect where you can actually see the bleed more and it kind of feels like part of the texture, you simply don't allow it to dry at all. So rather than like go to another part, you just take the next color and go over what you just went over, and it'll bleed more. It's just like when you put water down. If you put a little bit, it won't bleed as much. You put more, then it starts to spread. Same thing happens with your alcohol markers, just not to the same extent. But you can get that to work for you as part of your shading. And so here I'm going back over the whole thing with my lightest color. And then I could do this where if I wanted to keep it the same shade, the very lightest shade, then you just don't go back over that section. Okay, so now I've pulled out my Spectrum Noir metallic markers. And these are fun. Now, see, I kind of flat color with these, but not even always. These are kind of fun because they are metallic markers. And until they dry, you can move them around like watercolors. So they've got an opaque feel, like they're not very transparent until you add the water. But you don't have to. You could just use them like regular, like, hey, this marker's metallic. So that's a cool property of these markers, that they are watercolorish until they dry. And then once they're dry, then they don't move around. And so I'm just going to go back and forth between the various colors. They have, I want to say 12 different colors. I can't remember exactly. I have them somewhere. But, yep. So I'm just going through for the next section to try to figure out where I want to put the opaque kind of metallic colors all over the outfit, as well as her glasses. Okay, so now I've decided to add some more of the shiny sparkliness of the middle. And I have these Spectrum Noir markers. So as you can see, they are going to watercolorish. So I've got a little palette over there with a Primacolor shimmer paints. And so you just brush the marker down and then add water, and then you can use it like this watercolor. So you'll see that this gold is a little more transparent than the other colors that I was using for the metallic markers, because I've added water over there on my little mixing palette. And then so from there, I'll go between using the markers and watering them down and using them as watercolor, and then going back and forth between. So you can see on the side the shimmers. Okay. So I'll just take the little pieces there. I'll use some of the paints, and then I use some of the markers and go ahead and color in the pieces. I couldn't really decide what color I wanted the wall to be, so I just went ahead and went with like the little metallic colors to bring from her suit into the background. And so you can see I'm over there mixing some colors from the palette, and then I'll go back and forth between the palette and some of the markers. So here again, I just wanted to point out that I am using this, pretty much sure it's Amazon printed paper. And even if it's not the best paper, but I imagine that it is. I have to look at the book again. And you can see I am using plenty of paints and watercolors on here. And there is no basing. I didn't put any ground on this. No gesso. No glossy finish. I forget what that stuff is called from Golden. Excuse me. So you just have to make sure you don't use a ton of water or your paper will peel. But you can use watercolors. You can use water. It's just a matter, like I said, it's just a matter of what you get used to and then what you like. But you can use a lot of materials on Amazon paper. It's just, like I said, it's just a matter of what you're comfortable with. I've said this multiple times in the past, like forever. I still am in the coloring community. And so there's lots of paper. You don't necessarily use, artist grade paper like some people do. And there are like marker papers and Nina Solar White and all this kind of stuff. But, that gets to be expensive. So you can just use your regular old, 60-pound cardstock. And so since that, I use that a lot in stamping and coloring with the markers there. Amazon paper is just like, ain't nothing different. I mean, it is thinner than 60 pounds, but it's just what it is. And then also, I will use whatever is around and that will work. So, for example, I've painted pictures and colored pictures and alcohol markered pictures on receipts, and receipt paper is terrible. I mean, like, that is not good paper. But I've painted on it and I've used it before. So, like I said, it's just all about what you get used to, what you like, what kind of mediums. So you don't have to feel like, oh, I have to have this particular special stuff and I have to reprint all my Amazon paper onto something else. You don't have to. You can if you want, but you don't have to. I've said that in videos too. You don't have to feel like you have to do anything anybody else does, or feel bad because you can't do what everyone else does. You know? So hey, if you can't afford, or if you don't like, sometimes it's like people put this stuff out there like you have to do this and you have to do that. And it's like you don't have to like everything out there that people say you have to do. So for example, and I know there'll be people out here who's screaming and dying and like, oh my gosh, my insides have curled up and died. I don't like Prismacolors. I don't like them at all. Prismacolor pencils, don't like them. Never have. And when I started doing this coloring book stuff, I had a small, I'm trying to think of what size the set was. I had the portrait set, and I might have had like a 24 set or something like that. And I'm like, I do not like these pencils. I don't like them. I thought they were too waxy or bloomy or whatever, and I didn't like them. I preferred coloring with Crayola crayons to using Prismacolors. Yeah, I know. Some people just died. They're like, what? Assuming anybody's actually watching this video. I know somebody just died like, what? Yes, I would rather use Crayola crayons than Prismacolor pencils because I don't like them. So it's like, hey, do what you like to do, babies out there. It's your stuff. It's your stuff. You can use it. Okay, and then here again. Okay, so if you go back to the picture instead of me like rambling, I'm going back and I'm using more layers of watercolor on this Amazon paper to add details and depth. Yup. So you can see more of that palette there on the side. I love that one. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. And it's shimmery as well. It's so pretty. I do like copper tones with blue. So lovely. Now I'm just trying to add some more depth and color to the other pieces. To make it a little more interesting. And then here's where I go with the background. I could not figure out what I wanted to do. Excuse me. My allergies and stuff are always acting up. And so I was like, you know what? This whole panel would be metallic and shimmery. So we're just going to go with it. And I don't know if you saw right there in the corner, I went over that metallic marker up there at the top. And I'll probably do it over here again on this side where I'm at now. I went over some of that metallic marker and noticed it didn't move because it's dry. And so even though I'm putting wet paint over it, it's not moving. Because I allowed it to dry. Now, had I not, it would have moved. So those are my shimmering lights. Love that color. So here you go. Here's my finished paper. And check out T's World and stuff on Instagram. Because I believe she posted hers already. I don't think I posted mine on Instagram yet. But here's my final picture. I don't know if the shimmer is picking up. So, thanks for watching. And thanks for watching. I hope you guys are doing okay out there. And be safe. Be blessed. And, enjoy yourself. And don't put up with crap. Bye.